Go to securefreedomradio.org today. It's your freedom. It's your country. Frank Gaffney's Secure Freedom Radio.
Welcome back. We're joined, as we have the privilege of being each week, by Bill Gertz, one of our country's preeminent chroniclers and monitors and, well, in a sense, arbiters of what on earth is going on inside the ring. That is, of course, the title of his nationally and internationally recognized prize-winning column at the Washington Times, Inside the Ring, and also he is now a senior editor for the Washington Free Beacon. Always welcome here. Bill, thank you for joining us. Good to have you.
Hi, Frank. Good to be on the show.
There's so much to talk about, Bill. I hardly know where to begin, but among the things that you've been covering in the past week or so are developments. Danny Pletka alluded to them in a previous segment vis-a-vis the Chinese. But I'm interested in sort of your thoughts as to what's happening at sea these days, not just with China and the Bering Sea, but also what the Russians are up to off of our own coasts with this advanced surveillance vessel, the Yantar.
Yeah, this is an important story. The U.S. intelligence community has been closely monitoring a brand new Russian military research ship that has been along the east coast of the United States since about late August, and it's now headed to Cuba. It's been monitoring our nuclear missile submarine area, specifically Kings Bay, Georgia, and a lot of the transit routes. What has alarmed officials is that this new research vessel includes what they've described as cable-cutting equipment, indicating that that Russia is moving ahead with this hybrid warfare notion and understanding how critical are information networks and planning to disrupt those networks by cutting underground cables in a future conflict or crisis. So this is a big deal. They've chased this ship to the Caribbean area. It's called the Yantar, and it was just commissioned in May in a shipyard in the Baltic Sea called Yantar, which is Russian for amber.
And one of the targets of this, according to your reporting, and of concern, of course, to the military most especially, is something called the Department of Defense Information Network, or DODIN. What would such a ship be able to do to that system, which, as you say, Bill, is critical to our warfighting capabilities?
Yeah, this ship is part of what one official told me was a strategic reconnaissance program to identify and map the DODIN, the Defense Department Information Network, which includes dedicated military communications links, cables, information, as well as commercially leased communications links as well. The Chinese have also talked about this too, attacking our ability to do network-centric warfare, and so this is a key strategic asset of the U.S. and it's clear the Russians and the Chinese are both targeting it for reconnaissance and future attacks in a conflict.
Yeah, I wonder, Bill, whether this vessel might lend itself to penetration of this hardware as well as disrupting it. This is obviously of concern, most especially with respect to cyber efforts to get inside our wire, but this may be another option, I would think.
Yeah, we learned, back in the 70s, the NSA had the ability to tap into cables without actually having to tap into them. So it's clear that this particular vessel, the Yantar, has two deep-sea submersibles on board, which those are autonomously, remotely piloted vehicles, and they could actually do that. They could locate cables, could also locate submarine sensors and other equipment that's used as part of underwater warfare. And so this is a real concern, and hopefully they'll do some stuff to try and mitigate this threat.
Bill, one of the things that, again, you've done such splendid reporting on over the years is the context in which this is taking place. And it has to be the case, it seems to me, and I welcome your views on this, that some of this behavior, the penetrations of our air defense zones and our vital security operations, such as you've just described, is accompanied by, and perhaps it's being emboldened by the extent to which the Russians, and for that matter the Chinese, now believe they are obtaining a decisive edge with respect to nuclear forces. Give us a flavor of what they're doing, their modernization programs, and what it's giving rise to in terms of advanced capabilities, as well as how that compares to what we're doing to maintain our own deterrent.
Right. I had a piece in the Inside the Ring column this week that addressed just that point. Basically, the Obama administration, which announced that it wants to get rid of all nuclear weapons, but also caveated that by stating that as long as they exist, we're going to need them, sent the bad message and has adopted bad policies. Specifically, going back to 2013, he issued a presidential directive to reduce the role of nuclear weapons in U.S. strategy and also to find ways to do deterrence with smaller forces. Well, guess what's happening? Neither the Chinese nor the Russians are cooperating. And in fact, they are building up their nuclear forces, and it's making it extremely difficult to actually even implement this guidance, which has been sitting on the Defense Secretary's desk for 2 years. They're going to have to do a reassessment. Part of that initial assessment was that Russia and the United States are no longer adversaries. Well, that's out the window. We've heard from the incoming chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff that Russia is an existential threat and a growing threat. Even the Defense Secretary has said that Russia is an antagonist now and is not in that category of a non-adversary.
And yet, what we're seeing, Bill, is evidence that the administration is persisting in some of the woolly-headed notions. You mentioned, ridding the world of nuclear weapons as a case in point, but this idea that we can collaborate with the Russians, in fact, it seems they're, by some accounts at least, welcoming Russian intervention in the Middle East, notably in Syria. So against the backdrop, again, of increasing aggressive behavior and increasing military threats to this country, notably of the nuclear kind, we nonetheless seem to have the administration persisting in this idea that we can be partners with the Russians, and they'll ignore what's going on in Ukraine, for example.
We saw in the Iran nuclear deal that they believe in appeasement. I mean, there's no other word for it. And, appeasement, in my view, is a very dangerous policy that's leading us to war. And unless it's changed, that's what we're facing in the future.
Bill, speaking of woolly-headed ideas, one that persists is this notion that we can have effective, useful military-to-military exchanges with communist China. You've reported recently that the Air Force seems to be kind of rethinking that a bit, but is it?
Well, the Air Force Undersecretary for International Affairs issued a directive recently, and it was more of a restatement of policy, but it was made public, which is unusual in the first instance, since the Pentagon directive dealing with military exchanges with China is classified and kept secret from the public. But this unclassified directive restates the 12 various restrictions that were imposed in law back in 2000 that prevent military exchanges from dealing with things like advanced logistics, advanced training, advanced warfighting, nuclear issues, and of course the Chinese have been pressing the Pentagon to reduce those and eliminate those restrictions so that they can, again, use their exchanges in order to steal warfighting secrets from us. That's what they're after, whereas the Pentagon has this naive notion that if we can, quote, build trust with China, that this will somehow mitigate the threat. It's not working at all. The threat from China is becoming more serious, as we saw this week with the military parade.
Bill Gertz, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your insights into all of these matters and your reporting, sharing what you've learned and what we all need to know as broadly as you can. Thank you for the work you do at the Washington Free Beacon and the Washington Times, and, of course, our weekly visits here. We'll look forward to talking with you next week. In the meantime, have a good Labor Day. I hope the rest of you will share your Labor Day with us by joining us again on Monday. Same time, same station. Until then, this is Frank Gaffney. Thanks for listening.
From the nation's capital, you've been listening to Secure Freedom Radio with Frank Gaffney.